Hello, my name is Ebru Kurbak, and I'm artist and researcher, and I'm based in Vienna. I work at the Art University in Linz, teach there, and I'm originally from Turkey, but I live here. And today I called my talk Stitching Worlds, because Stitching Worlds is the name of my upcoming project. It is a project which will be funded by FWF, PEAK program. I think you're aware of that program. It will be hosted at the University of Applied Arts, Vienna. I did the application together with my collaborator Irene Posch, and it will be an international collaboration with other artists and scientific institutions. So I thought, like today in the talk, maybe I guide you or introduce a few projects of mine and my practice, and especially a few themes that I find important and relevant for this new project, because I'm super excited about this new project. So I will start with my background. I studied architecture, and I think very spatially, and after studying architecture in Istanbul, I came to Linz to make a PhD studies. And the first project I created was called Newsnitter. It's a project that I created together with Mahir Yavuz, who is a visualization expert. And in this project, I explored knitting as a sculptural medium. What we did was, like, we gathered online data, political news items from the internet, and we filtered this data, analyzed it, visualized it, and sent it to a computerized knitting machine. And the output would be a standard sweater, a daily sweater, which is produced by a worldwide collaboration, if you may. And then we created these 10 unique sweaters, which were like evidence of a certain day or a period. Some of them are created by local news daily in Turkey, and some of them are created by global news. And here, what was really exciting, or what I still continue exploring, is, as I said, knitting as a sculptural medium. Textiles have, like, each textile production technique has its own kind of nature, and knitting, different than embroidery, for example, which is a projection on a surface, is a sculptural medium. If you don't have data, in this case, you don't have a stitch, which means you don't have the object. And each stitch is a pixel, but it's not projected on the surface, but it creates the surface itself. So that was kind of an important theme that followed up. A second, if you use knitted garments to sculpture information and wear it in public space, you actually use a very important surface, which is the surface of the body, which I believe has been commercialized with branding and has been used by a lot of commercial interests. And this carried me forward to the idea of exploring personal space as an artistic environment. Since years, I mean, lots of artists have been doing interventions in public space. It's also like because public space has been highly commercialized in the past, and it's being open to artistic intervention. The same way I think personal space, and especially personal electronic space, which we create through our mobile phones or other devices, is very much commercialized, and also it is under governmental detention. They watch, they listen, and they intrude, they send commercials. So I thought this space could be used as an artistic intervention space. Another project I did about this was the Taiknam hat, a very simple project we created together with Ricardo Nascimento. It's a feather hat which kind of detects these electromagnetic waves which are created by a cell phone. When you talk on the cell phone, the electromagnetic waves are sensed by the hat, but then there is a small motor which moves the feathers around, and it flickers, emulating goosebumps or horripilation, like your hair goes up. So this irritation is visualized physically in the object. Same idea explored in a different way. I produced this pair of gloves called Tunable Touch. There are vibration motors on the fingertips. Again, you can sense electromagnetic waves, but a different frequency which radiates from objects like computers or washing machines, like this kind of low frequency. And I was questioning what we call invisible, visible, material, immaterial, how these are actually, how we treat these concepts as objective reality. But actually, I mean, it's a quality of us. We cannot see them, therefore they are invisible, and how all these definitions are human-centric. So I created this pair of gloves in which you have a small tuner, and by tuning, you can tune reality in the sense that if this object is solid for you on the edges, then it becomes solid for you around here according to how you tune it, because the electromagnetic waves are here, it senses and then creates vibration, which is a tactile input in your fingers. So I did many more projects in this area. I don't have time to explain all of them, but I just wanted to introduce the concept of the Umwelt, which is inspiring for me, the biological concept of Jakob von Uexküll, in which actually every animal, including a tick or a giraffe or, I don't know, a human, are actually not sharing the same environment. They seem to be sharing the same environment, but they are living in some sort of invisible bubble. And this bubble creates the relationships between the tick, in his example, and the environment. For example, a tick lives a very short life. It's born, immediately mates, then can climb up a tree. I think it knows how to go upwards. And then it can smell uric acid, which comes from a mammal. And then when a mammal passes by, it drops itself and then sucks the blood and then dies. So that's all. I mean, there is no forest in the sense that it smells good. There are no bird sounds. There is no greenness, or these concepts do not exist for the tick. So if you try to explore the tick, be able to understand the tick, it's kind of an in-between position, which I really love. And then I started thinking of myself, am I like working like an ecologist, like trying to regulate or create interfaces that create this kind of relationship between a person and its environment, and in that sense. So I thought, okay, it doesn't have to be always on me, but it could be in the environment too. One of the projects that I will show this video, it's the Teiglam head inverted based on this idea of Umwelt. Ricardo and I came up with the idea to make a spatial installation in which the feathers would be then imposed in the space. The device is still with the user, but there's a communication between the user and the environment in that sense. It was created in Laboral in Gijón during an artistic residency and exhibited afterwards in File Festival. I don't have to show the whole video, but just...
And how did they react?
It reacts to different types of, it's a custom-made circuit for an engineer built for us, and it reacts to wireless, Bluetooth, and a few more frequencies that you can emulate with. You can create with cell phones, and here also there's reaction in the end that is created with a walkie-talkie. So what we wanted to create actually was an environment that just reacts. I mean, we didn't want this one-to-one interaction so much. That was not our point, but the way people interacted with it was usually that. And when the museum guides discovered walkie-talkie, it became inevitable that it's this thing that goes up. And I'm mostly excited to talk about this project, which you will see integrates some of the ideas that I just mentioned. And this is the knitted radio. I worked together with Irene Posch, and it's a totally collaborative work. We work together and decide on everything together. And it's it was created in the last, just now I came back from New York at the Eyebeam Art and Technology Center. We had a residency, a chance to spend like 4 months there working on this project. And actually, it is based on other processes that we've gone to. Last year, we were also at the V2 Institute for Unstable Media in Rotterdam, and we did a residency there in which we went back to the idea of knitting. And this is actually because we said we would talk about work in progress. This is images from the annual show at Eyebeam, in which like we were in the middle of the residency, so we had to show something. And it was in the middle of the process we found a way to express our work in progress. I will guide you through a few of these ideas. What we proposed is a knitted sweater that is also an FM transmitter for public space. And the sweater will be a tool to allow multiplicity of voices to exist in public space. People could transmit their own information. And inspired from Tetsuo Kogawa, we thought it should be a micro radio network in which instead of global networks like internet, which like covers everyone, he suggests creating small radio networks and ad hoc, like I transmit something, someone transmits what I transmit, and then we create kind of a small, what he calls polymorphous space, which is a very exciting idea for me. But while doing this, we continued a recent research of ours, which is textile macroelectronics. So what we do is that we use traditional textile crafting techniques like knitting or other techniques, but we knit with conductive, non-conductive, and resistive material, and we try to create electronic components and devices from scratch. And so the idea was to create this radio, but it should be created only by knitting and by combining conductive and non-conductive materials. As I said, each textile technology has a different kind of sculptural or, I don't know, projection or infiltration, different kind of way of organizing material in space. And if you look at microelectronics, open up a transistor, open up a capacitor, actually you see conductive and non-conductive stuff organized in space. So we just try to understand what a capacitor is, and then try to do that with a textile technique in the same way. And this is for us a huge speculation, hence the lavender. What happens if your electronic objects are created through knitting? First of all, who becomes more powerful? Who becomes capable of fixing those devices? And what materials become important? What locations become important? You kind of influence a larger system or an ecology of things. And how this shift influences the way we use, produce, package, protect our objects. So this is also a part of the story. And our inspiration is mainly in this project was Taksim Square. I'm sure like everybody heard what happened in the last year. Actually, this is where I studied up there, and the Gezi Park. You know what happened. Maybe I shouldn't repeat very much, but there has been some protests since the governmental decision was to convert the park into a shopping mall, and then combined with a lot of other issues in the world, in the country, it became a countrywide series of protests. But Taksim is a very important location. I come from there, so I know a little bit that in 1977 there was this big event on the 1st of May, on a May Day. People celebrated and went there for protests, but then there were shootings coming from some location, some hotel, and people died. And since then, actually, there has never been any protest in Taksim. Like recently they allowed it, but it's still a place of desire. Everybody wants to be there. But it's under police control all the time. People can be there if they don't look like they're making protests. You see where I'm going, right? Like the radio thing. And this image is inspiring because it's like the tear gas, unfortunately, around the people who were trying to protest last summer. And this is inspirational to Irene and I. We thought of this as the radio network that would be created by people, and they would like communicate, imagine this cloud as the radio waves. So we thought that radio would be a part of the body, like breathing, brain waves, heartbeat, body odor. It's a way that you, I don't know, leave your traces in space. And then people would be like, look like doing something else, but they would be protesting or sharing data, doing something. And then we took this electronic device, built it out of standard components first, reverse engineered, looked at what components we need, and then created the components through knitting again. So resistor is, for example, in resistor you need a resistive yarn, and you just try not to create short contact between the rows. And as you can see, you can have a very consistent value. Like one row here is 200 ohms, 2 rows is 400 ohms, so it's quite stable. And the yarn is a Japanese yarn, which has stainless steel inside. The reason why the yarn was produced is to create, I don't know, some skirt or sweater or something to stay in shape. So therefore it has steel, but if you measure the electric conductivity, you can have a very stable resistance in it. So we also tried to stick to off-the-shelf things that any lady who knows to knit could find, not like spark fun material. The capacitor is same, like 2 copper wires. Also, I shopped them from Karaköy in Istanbul. You can find it for very cheap. These 2 copper wires knitted together create capacitance. If you're interested, I can explain these in detail later. The coil is a single copper wire knitted as 4 stitches. As you can see here, it's already connected to the electronic circuit. That's how we work. We dismantle electronics and slowly replace electronic pieces with knitted pieces. The pattern is super important for us. Like this Afghan scarf in Turkey last year's, I don't know how long it has been, but one guy was arrested because he was close to an explosion and he had this scarf. And this scarf was put in evidence folder, which created a huge discussion in Turkey. Can this be evidence that someone is responsible for something? We were thinking what pattern we use. Then my friend Onur showed up with an H&M sweater into a dinner and like this black and white. And we looked at Burda magazines, H&M, Zara, everything is black and white. So we said, okay, let's go with whatever is out there today. But again, patterns have symbolic meanings. This is why we picked this pattern. We looked at Anatolian patterns and we found out this pattern, which is göz, means eye, and it is a pattern that magically protects the wearer from dangerous external forces, like the evil eye. So we thought it fits with our idea. And then, in our case, pattern takes another function. And this is like electronic function. If you knit the same thing with the same pattern 2 times, you have the same value. So that's kind of the additional function we impose on patterns. A layout, very simple work. Where will the capacitors be? How large they should be? All by testing. And then this is the most exciting part for me, that we discovered actually Vogue magazines, all these, Brigitte, like amazing medium for actually transferring information. It's 3D printing. Knitting is 3D printing in the sense that you can fax this information to your grandmother. She would come up with the same sweater. So pattern is code in that sense, and it's very exciting for us to discover this. And in Turkey, lately, if the people who made news about all these protests are jailed. I mean, it's the second most jailed journalists country. It's a country where people cannot make news about these protests so easily. So we thought, okay, knitting medium is a medium that is dismissed because crafting, knitting, embroidery, they are dismissed as unintellectual stuff, and people maybe do not look at their media. So we thought, okay, maybe our output is not a sweater, but it's a pattern that can be published in such media. And we've imagined like creating a pattern for a knitted radio and publish it in the Brigitte of Turkey. That's where we are right now. This is the third prototype. I mean, we're continuing working on the prototypes. This prototype is working. We tested it. And this is where the pattern is. Like, it is the pattern for a knitted radio. It's black and white, loose fit sweater. And if you would replace some of the materials with copper or resistive yarn, you would be able to ideally get the radio sweater. So going back and opening up a question, Stitching Worlds is is the next project that we will be working on. And in this project, like the knitted radio, we will talk about knitting, weaving, embroidery in craftsmanship or global industrial scales, and think about speculative or fictive ideas around these concepts. What if electronics emerged from knitting, weaving? What would have been? And so it will be an exciting time. I will stop here and just listen to your questions. Thank you. Did I take too much time?
No.